Do you ever have difficulty getting rid of things? Well, you're not alone. There are lots and lots of people that struggle with this issue. So let's take a little peek at our motivation for messiness, shall we? Hi, I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran, and this is Wisdom, Love, and Magic. The polite term for the objects you amass is clutter. The more realistic term is probably junk. And the reasons you obsessively hang on to things are grief, fear, and/or various cognitive distortions and fallacies. Let's start with the thought end of things. One of the most popular fallacies or cognitive distortions around the preservation of clutter is something called loss aversion. This type of thought leads you to believe that your fear of loss or perceived loss is stronger than the pleasure you'd feel from gaining something else of equal value. And trust me, this can significantly impact your decision making when it comes to your belongings. Because being afraid of the pain of the perceived loss associated with getting rid of something, even if it holds little to no practical value and really serves no purpose in our lives, even if we may have no functional use for it or true sentimental connection to it, even when we are aware, or more often than not are made aware, of the psychological cost of holding on to unneeded objects, we still persist. Oh, come on now. How bad can the cost of just hanging on to a few things really be? Good question. Well, to start with, when we collect or save more than we need, we physically have less space in our homes, sometimes to the point where we avoid certain rooms. And we won't have people over for dinner or gatherings or holidays. And if we do invite people into our houses, we restrict them to certain clean areas or shut and lock doors that lead to our not so tidy spaces. And everything I've just said is accompanied by feelings of anxiety, depression, stress, a seemingly unending sense of overwhelm, and often shame. But despite all that, we hang on to things we don't need with incredible fervor. We fill up our houses and attics with stuff until we run out of room. Then we fill out our garages with stuff until we run out of room. Then we build a storage shed in our back garden and fill that up until we run out of room. And finally, we resort to renting storage space of some kind. Every month, lots of people pay large sums to storage companies to store and hang on to things they don't need and have often forgotten that they ever had. Next up, the fallacy of shrinking cost. In this one, you spent money on something. It could be anything. Toys, the ancient furniture you bought from when you were just out of college, clothes that no longer fit and will not fit again. And if they did fit, they would be so grossly out of style that they couldn't even politely be referred to as vintage. You know the stuff I'm talking about. Anyway, in this belief system, we're letting our past investments or expenses influence our present and future decisions. And even when reason suggests that cutting our losses would make more sense, as I said, we still persist in hanging on to our stuff. To overcome the fallacy of shrinking cost, we have to recognize the money we've already invested isn't coming back. Now, you might be able to sell the item, but you're not going to get back what you paid for it simply because you held on to it. And related to that is another cognitive bias, one that I run into with patients all the time. It's the fallacy that because I own it, the object is special, like me. Or said another way, we tend to attribute a higher value to the things that we own than they're actually worth, just because we own them. Sorry to burst your bubble, but that desk you bought 20 years ago is not a valuable antique because you hung on to it for so long. In fact, it's more likely worth a great deal less than you paid for it because you did. There are quite a few inexpensive, decidedly more modern and functional desks out there. Think Amazon, think IKEA, think again. Another powerful clutter-maintaining device is losing the ability to see it. Yeah, you heard me correctly. You actually start to live around your clutter as though it's not there. For example, you know how during the holidays when merchants play mood music in their stores in an attempt to initiate nostalgia and inspire spending? In fact, what you might actually be experiencing nostalgia for is all the money you spent last year on things people didn't appreciate, lost interest in, or maybe, gasp, got rid of. But psychological manipulation in sales and marketing is another video for another day. So back to the music. That holiday music, those songs on steroids that had been playing constantly since you entered the mall. It's in every store. It's in the walkways between the stores, even in the bathrooms, for heaven's sake. But after a relatively short period of time, You just stop noticing it. The human brain attends to what is determined to be most relevant and important in your reality of the moment. And, hint, hint, lets go of the rest. Yeah, you heard me right. Lets go of the rest. Now, there's a concept. It's called selective attention. There's only so much neurological real estate in your brain, after all, and we can't get anything done if we're always attending to everything. Hence, selective attention. This feature is courtesy of your reticular activating system, or RAS, by the way. It's a sometimes handy, sometimes dangerous bundle of sorting neurons located in the hypothalamus and brainstem. Developed and evolved with the best of intentions to help improve our chances of survival. But you know how it is sometimes. The best of intentions do not necessarily lead to nirvana. So whether it's holiday music or clutter, you can just stop noticing it. A really helpful technique in dealing with selective attention is to take a picture of your things. It gives needed perspective and deactivates your RAS because the pictures are now considered new information, and so your attention circuits are turned back on. And now a story. Once upon a time in the dim and distant past, a psychologist named Albert Bandura introduced the concept of self-efficacy. And what he discovered is that we are who we believe we are and can do what we believe we can do, and we live our lives accordingly. Let me repeat this because it's really important. If we believe we can do something, we can. If we don't believe we can, we don't. So, if you're overwhelmed and are convinced that your clutter is stronger than your ability to cope with it, it will be. The beauty of this, however, is that since we can create a belief, we can uncreate it. Yeah, you're really, really powerful that way. Cautionary tale, though. Watch out for rationalizing and be careful not to hang out with negative or unoptimistic people, because those are definitive psychological change buzz killers. Spend time with those who have achieved the goals you've set for yourself. And if you don't know anyone personally to aspire to, and for whatever reason you feel uncomfortable asking friends and family for assistance, there are lots of other resources out there, like professional organizers, YouTube channels, as well as other video streaming services devoted to cleaning and organizing, and of course self-help books. All those things will offer you encouragement and give you practical how-to information and tips. Sometimes, however, there's a lot more to let go of than just objects. Sometimes it's more than bad habits, narcissistic allocation of value, or rationalizations that lie beneath our clutter. Sometimes there are deeply powerful and painful conditions and emotions that perpetuate it. Underneath all that stuff could be ADHD, various types of abuse, rape, exposure to toxic relationships, and or severe physical or mental illness, just to name a few. Please, if this is the case, reach out to a licensed clinical professional for assistance in processing whatever issues you might have. You matter. Your feelings matter. Your life matters. There is help and support for you. Remember that you're incredibly powerful, and asking for help can be one of the greatest expressions of that power available. And feelings, in this case, taking the forms of rationalization, fallacy, and cognitive distortions, are not facts. Until next time, I'm Dr. Margaret Cochran. Be safe and be well.